Okay, so today I'm going to do a little bit of a stage makeup tutorial. What I'm going to do is basically what I do for day wear as well, but just a little bit darker and more extreme to make it show up on stage. So I'm going to excuse my morning face. I'm going to have to start from scratch. What I'm going to show you for eyes and for like placement of blush or bronzer is what I learnt at about 13 from Tanya Powell Modelling Agency. So thanks to them, and this is not my own expertise. I'm going to be filming myself in the mirror so that I can actually see what I'm doing. Thus the kind of strange shot that you're seeing, but hopefully you can see quite well what I'm doing nonetheless. So our first step is foundation. Now it's really important that it matches your skin well, otherwise you're going to look like your face is a different colour to your neck. If it is a little bit different, then you just have to be really careful that you blend it in under the edge of your chin so that you don't have this weird line thing going on. So you have to be really careful with the edges of foundation and making sure they're blended properly. If you do have a couple of different colours, I know that my skin changes a lot from summer to winter as it gets up a little bit more colour in the summer. When you have a slightly darker one, what you can do is to put some of your darker colour on the raised parts of your face, and it will actually sort of help to sculpt the shape of your face a bit. My foundation is a Fit Me Maybelline. These come in lots of variations of colour, so it should be quite easy to find something that matches you in this. It is liquid, so it's a little bit hard to test at the shop, which is the downside. What I'm going to do is actually, I just put a fairly big glob in each of the main spots that I know I'm going to want to cover. At the moment my nose is important, as I've had a cold, it's a bit red still. And so I'm just being quite messy at the moment and just putting some around the place. Depending what kind of foundation you have, it might be a little bit different to this. If you have one of those stick ones, you basically can draw it on in these spots and then blend it afterwards. So now I've got a nice sort of wet smudge along the T section of my face, and I'm just going to blend that over all the edges of my nose and out nicely to the edges. Make sure you don't go right up under your eye, because it will get all creases in it from the tiny muscles that move your eyes around, and that doesn't look very good. You want to come a little bit under the edge of your chin so that you don't see the edge of this. And we want to try and cover fairly thoroughly, and for stage, relatively thickly, so that you look kind of smooth all over. If you do have a particular pimple or mole or something that bothers you, that kind of sticks out in a particular spot, you can use some kind of thicker concealer, sometimes maybe a lighter colour, to get rid of the red underneath before you put your foundation on, and that will help to blend that in with the rest. Okay, so I'm now all blended in, and the next thing I'm going to do is to add a bit of colour to my cheeks so that I'm a bit brighter in the spots I want to be brighter and don't look sickly. It's important to get this placement right though, because we don't want it to look like you're just red in the face. So what I'm using here is kind of a bronze and slight pink colour, which comes out kind of a dark apricot. And it's just a designer brands one, so it's actually quite cheap. The only trouble with these is I tend to only use this end because this part is too dark for me, for my face. But we may find that some of you with darker skin, that dark bit is good for you, so I can maybe do a swapsy. Now, ideally you want to have a proper makeup brush for doing blush or bronzer. You need something big and soft. And then we're going to try and get it in the right spot. So the way that I do this is just to pull a silly closed mouth smile face, and that makes what the modelling agency would call the apple of your cheek. It's kind of the round bit on the front, sit forward so it's easy to identify. And then once you've put blush on that part, you follow your cheekbone back towards your ear, like this. Okay, so now I look a little bit more alive, and that is quite important on stage because you can get really, really flat if you haven't got any variation in colour at all. So now I'm going to move on to eyes, and we're going to start for stage by putting some eyeliner on. This isn't normally included in this style of makeup, but for stage it is quite important because often your mascara doesn't go very far to showing up your eyelashes, so the eyeliner kind of helps your eyes to stand out a lot more and your eyelashes to look darker and more visible. So we don't want to go too thick, we just want to follow our top eyelashes across from the outside to the inside, and we want to keep the colour right up against your eyelashes so we don't have any white in between. If your line isn't perfectly straight, it's not going to be the end of the world because we're going to go over it with eyeshadow afterwards, so that edge will get blended in quite nicely. And we're just going to come to the outside corner and just go a little bit along the bottom. We're not going to go all the way across the lower lid, and that's because that will potentially have the effect of closing your eye up, and we want to open our eyes, make them look bigger as much as possible. I like to use a pencil because if I make a mistake, as I just did then, you can just kind of smudge it in. Whereas with liquids, they're a little bit more permanent once they go on, which can be a bit of a pain if you don't have a completely steady hand. So next we're going to add some eyeshadow over that. You want to use colours that would be in natural shadow on your face, and that can include quite warm kind of brown colours. So if you see here, I've got a full palette, full range of different browns, right through from like a beige to a almost black brown, and in that palette I could probably find colours that would suit any of you. You need to choose a lighter variation and a darker variation, and I often mix a couple to get a colour I really like. The darker your skin is, the darker your colouring, the darker you're going to have to go for it to actually have an effect. So I'm really quite pale, so for my lighter colour I just use a sort of tan. For stage I'm going to go a bit darker, so for my day wear I would use these two as my lighter colour, but for stage I'm probably going to come down here and use more of a red brown as my main eyelid colour. Now ideally you would have some proper makeup brushes for this. I've lost mine and haven't been able to buy any more, but what you need is a nice small brush that you can get quite fine control with. Just going to get some of that lighter brown on the brush, and that's going to go over all of your eyelid from up here where the crease bit is, where it joins your face, and down to your eyeliner. So you can see now we're going to go over the edge of that eyeliner a bit, and it will cover any slight bumps in the line that you drew, so that's no big deal. You probably find that you need to kind of reload your brush with the eyeshadow several times to get it to go everywhere that you want it. It's kind of like painting at this point. Okay. And same on the other side. So because we're trying to represent a relatively natural shadow, you can also use some sort of grey colours. So if your skin and hair and stuff is a bit darker, you could use something sort of down this grey end as well. And if you use a combination of grey and brown, it often comes up really quite nicely. I'm going to do an example where I'm including a little bit of dark grey and some dark brown together. And with this darker colour, we're going to highlight that line where your eyelid joins to your face, it's indented lower bit here from your nose all the way across. It's where your eyelid creases to open and close your eye. And shadowing this crease or valley should have the effect of making your eye show up more and look bigger and more open when your eye is open. And you'll be able to see this a little bit with your eyes open. So you can see that's just showing up just above where my lid opens to. And we're just going to put a bit of that colour as well in that outer corner there where we put some eyeliner. Alright, and the same for the other side. So try and get your colour the same when you go on the other side if you are mixing the two, otherwise you might have one eye that looks a bit bigger than the other in the end. Now an extra thing that I do for stage is that I get a little bit, kind of an in the middle colour of my eyeshadow, somewhere between my light and my dark, and I go along my eyebrow and brush that. It's better if you have a proper makeup brush because you'll also be brushing your eyebrow into a nice shape into my eyebrow to make it show up. Because we don't want to have lovely clear looking eyes on the stage and then not be able to see any eyebrows up the top. That'll look a bit funny. Okay, so our eyes are nearly done. We just need a coat of mascara so that we have eyelashes that show up over all of that. It doesn't really matter what mascara you have. You want something that's darker than your eyelashes normally are. And for stage you're going to put a fair bit on and try and make your eyelashes show up as much as possible. But it's good to have a brush. My brush is a very good example here. This brush is really fuzzy. What I found are really good, I can't remember what that brand is, but I'll see if I can find it. is this one. It's called Definer Lash. And if you have a look at it, you'll notice that this brush has all little pointy sharp bits, and those really separate your eyelashes and stop them from like getting stuck together by the mascara. So when you're putting it on quite thick, like for stage, often you'll have kind of clumping together, and that's not very nice. It doesn't look very nice. So having a brush like this, you can use it to brush it out a bit to separate them. But what we actually did at modelling was put the type of mascara we like, the colour, on the other brush that we prefer. And that way everyone could use the same mascara without using the same brush as well. It's a bit more hygienic if anyone has any eye troubles. Now you notice that when I'm putting one, I'm actually blinking my eyelashes onto the brush rather than just moving the brush. Sometimes that can help because your eyes want to blink anyway. But mascara is really just a matter of getting used to it. Once you've done this a lot of times, you'll find you can do it. And it looks silly, but if you have trouble holding your eyes open, open your mouth. Because when you're concentrating on holding your mouth open, it's harder for your body to move your eye. You also notice that I put some of my mascara on from the top side of my eyelashes. It can just sort of help to lengthen them out and make them as dark as possible. And there we go. We've got nice showing up stage eyes. So the last thing we need to do is put some lip colour on so that we have a mouth on stage. Now I'm going to go over my lips with a lip liner first, because this can help guide where you're going to put your lipstick, and if you're using something really dark like we are, you're not going to want to get it where you don't want it. So we're just going to find the edges of your lips and outline them first. Don't try and make them any bigger or smaller. Draw around your mouth as it is. And now we're going to colour in. And now it's just that little bit easier to see where to put your lipstick. Now, for our stage lippy, we have red team colours. We want to be really red to go with our club colours. This red is a minimum dark. I actually want the colour that Michelle and Miranda have got in their semi-permanent lippy that they've got. So if one of you two could post the brand up, if anyone else wants to try and get exactly the same one, you can do that. Otherwise, I'm sure one of them would be happy to lend it to you on the day. And we're just gonna go inside those lines we did. And we are ready for stage. So that's what I want you to do. If you're doing your makeup on the day or someone else's makeup on the day of states.